Yeah, so one of the things that I think is striking is that the book begins with the Blessed Virgin Mary. Part of this is cool because of the Catholic apologetic posture against the Protestants, and part of it's overwhelming because the Virgin Mary has a holiness unlike that of any other person who's ever lived. So it seems kind of unhelpful, actually, to begin with someone whose experience of Christ was so unique. But maybe you don't find it that way, or maybe you have something you'd like to offer about what.
I think it's the right starting point for this, because if we put, I'm going to call this doctrine of spirituality abandon-ism. So,
abandon-ism. Yeah,
so the doctrine of abandon-ism. If we put that between quietism on the one hand, of pure passivity and just kind of being a stone to God's reign. On the other hand, we have a spiritual activism. And I think less people today are inclined to a pure quietism. It's hard to get into that mindset. We're just Americans, one. It's not really us in general. In general, we think we have a lot of control over things. In a different age, quietism, I think, was more, maybe for times of plagues or times of difficulties, maybe it was more interesting to people. I think the threat on our side, though, would perhaps be spiritual activity, lists of things, prayers, routines. What do I need to do?
All the novenas,
all this kind of stuff. This looking for the secret, the kind of practices they need to have. And we even can get in this with the virtues about practicing these sort of things. Yes. But abandonism is between these two. Not pure passivity, but also not spiritual activity, but a balance. Whose balance? I think he starts off with Mary rightly, because Mary is not a quietist, nor is she an activist. She's a receptive activist. She receives fiat, let it be done, but then immediately wanders off to Elizabeth.
Right.
You have this sense that Mary is both attentive to, abandoned, you could say, to God's plans in her life, but not abandoned by him, nor giving herself up in activity so that she's just purely passive to him. Again, rock with rain. No, she's responding. So the abandonism is not a quietism or pure passivity, but rather a responsiveness, a Marian kind of responsiveness to the present moment and the graces that God's giving, whether large or small in any case.
Yeah, the thing that I like that Caussade mentions about the Virgin Mary right out of the gate is he says, Mary is the most simple of all of God's creatures. And by that simplicity is therefore the closest to God of all God's creatures. So one of the themes that I wanted to bring out in our kind of meta conversation about the book as we begin to explore what really sits in it is this call to simplicity, without which it is impossible to be abandoned to God, right? And I think all of us can relate to that because we begin to clutter our lives very quickly. Father James Sullivan, our novice master, joked to us about in a conference on poverty that even a cloistered nun will get attached to a holy card and will cling to it. And regardless of your state of life and whatever your obligations and duties of life are, it's very easy to begin to see that life become cluttered with all kinds of things, all kinds of demands. And
activism.
It's difficult to strive for that kind of simplicity. But again, if we don't, without that kind of simplicity, we won't be close to God.
Yeah, he has this bracing kind of opening where he talks about the ease of holiness. And he says in there, if the business of becoming holy seems to present insufferable difficulties, it is merely because we have the wrong idea about it. In reality, holiness consists of one thing only, complete loyalty to God's will. Now, everyone can practice this loyalty, whether actively or passively. The sense of he's a simple God, and our complexity is due to our dispersion amongst time and space and away from him to other things. Whereas if our object is simple, then we are training ourselves to be simple. And this holiness that is present in the ease, it's an anti-elitism, in a sense. Again, so get back to the kind of Albigensian Cathar stuff the Dominicans were fighting against early on, Holy Father Dominic, that there were these kind of difficult rituals and regimes and elitism that involved spirituality had special practices and special commitments and different levels. Think of Scientology today or something, or this kind of self-help guruism and things. And Christ came to free us of that. His yoke is easy, his burden is light. So spirituality, the life of holiness, ought to be easy, and it's we who make it complicated, very understandably, because we like to make everything complicated. But Caussade is reminding us the truth of God's simplicity, and therefore the divine life and holiness in his simplicity, being part of our simplicity.
Father Bonaventure, if you had the choice between holding a toad and subscribing to a YouTube channel, what would you choose?
Subscribe to a toad holding a YouTube channel.
Oh my gosh. Please subscribe to a toad holding a YouTube channel, especially if it's ours. Cheers.